Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video, and in this video, back with a new Survivor What If video. This time doing what if every Survivor season had the Juror Removal Twist. Now for the sake of this video, I will be mirroring this off of what happened in Survivor Co. Wrong, with it occurring right before Final Tribal, and for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to declare the winner of Final Immunity the person that votes out the juror. Also, to keep the number of jurors at a realistic level, there are going to be seasons where I decide to add jurors, which will be the final juror before jury, or there's going to be times where I drop a juror, with that obviously being the first member of the jury, just so that the final number of jurors after the twist ends up being an amount that I could see production actually going with. So with that, let's jump right into the first season of the show. We're at Survivor Borneo, where again, here I am adding Gretchen to the jury, and Kelly gets to vote someone out. Now, I think on paper, you would think the common assumption would be that she would vote out Sue, considering how much Sue blasted her at Final Tribal. However, I don't know if Kelly knew how bitter Sue was at this point, to where I could definitely see her voting out Rudy instead, where she knew that Rudy was going to vote for Rich, but I feel like it probably is one of the two, maybe Sean as well, considering Sean was definitely someone that was going to vote for Rich, and Kelly didn't have really any respect for Sean either, so it's probably one of the three. And the funny thing here is that I do think whether or not Sue survives or not has a great impact on the vote here, because if Sue does still end up on the jury and still makes a Snakes and Rats speech, then we obviously get the real life scenario, but minus a vote for Richard, and we have Gretchen, someone that I think will vote for Kelly, giving Kelly the win in a 4-3 vote. However, if Sue isn't there and doesn't say the Snakes and Rats speech, then that means that Jervis and Colleen are less likely flip their votes, which they did coming into Final Tribal, to which maybe they do vote for Rich instead, to where that would mean that Rich wins 5-2. Again, it could go either way. So really, this is actually a season with a decent amount of variance to it. Next up, we got Survivor Australian Outback, where we add in Jeff Varner to the jury, and we have Colby deciding who to vote off. I think here it's either Jerry, just because obviously they hated Jerry, or it could be Jeff as the first juror, as I feel like Colby's the type of person that would do something like that. Obviously, if he votes out Jeff, then we get the exact same result. However, if he votes out Jerry, which I actually think is probably the more likely outcome here, Colby probably wins, considering Jeff Varner seemed to be pro-Colby postseason, to where so that could definitely change the result here, giving Colby the win 4-3. Next up for Survivor Africa, again, we are adding Clarence to the jury. And to be honest, this shouldn't matter because I think Kim Johnson probably votes out Clarence without much thought, as again, Clarence was definitely a person that didn't really have much respect there and just would have been the easy person to vote out. And through that, we would have gotten the same result. Next up for Marquesas, we add in Boston Rob to the jury. And guess what? I think Nalia votes out Boston Rob as well, leading to the same result once again. I think the only other person that Nalia could vote out is maybe Sean, just because obviously she's against Vesepia. I knew Vesepia would get Sean's vote, but realistically I think Rob is probably the more likely option. Now for Thailand, we add Sheehan to the jury, and Brian probably votes out either Penny or Sheehan. Again, the first juror is always going to be an easy person that you could pick off. But, I think Brian has got to know that he has, no relationship with Penny. Or could even do Aaron as well. You could really split the difference there. But, again, the vote shouldn't really matter, as obviously if he votes out Sheehan, he still wins 4-3. And even if he votes out one of the others, Sheehan could still even vote for Brian, to where he would even win with a bigger margin of 5-2. Now for the Amazon, we add in Roger to the jury, and I think Jenna votes out Roger. So we are getting the same result here. Again, Roger is someone that was very openly not going to vote for a woman to win. Obviously, Jenna knew that. So again, it would have been an easy vote off. Now for Pearl Islands, we add Savage to the jury, and I think Lil votes out Savage. Again, another same result, where obviously Lil had a lot of animosity towards Savage, and this would have been an easy person to pick as well. Again, same result here. Now for All Stars, we're going to add Jerry to the jury, and here Boss Rob, I think he picks either Lex or Big Tom. I don't really know which one. I would probably lean towards Lex, where I think he would think that Big Tom's at least a bit more malleable. Or really, he could even go for Alicia if he knew how pissed off she was as well. Really, it's any of the three. And to be honest, it shouldn't really matter, considering I do think Jerry would have sided with Amber anyway, and Amber would still win. But Rob really has so many options of people he could vote out here that it's a bit unclear of which one he would go with. Now for Vanuatu, we're adding Rory to the jury, and here I do think Chris probably votes out Scout. I mean, I think Scout's the only person that he would have thought would have been like a locked vote for Twyla, to where I think that's probably an easy vote off for him. And with that, he wins it by an even wider margin of 6-1. Now for Survivor Palau, we are adding Bobby John to the jury, and Tom has a couple options. Obviously, Bobby John is the person that is going to be the first juror at this point, so an easy person to vote off. Or he could vote out Kobe, who is someone that is pretty clearly against him. And again, it doesn't matter really which one he picks, as no matter what he wins. However, if he does vote out Kobe here, he will win unanimously, as Bobby John's a pretty locked vote for Tom. But again, realistically, it doesn't really matter. Now for Guatemala, we do add Brandon to the jury. And Danny here, I think she probably votes out Rafe. I mean, she is pretty confident that Rafe is never going to vote for her over Steph. So I do feel like that's the person to vote out here, and through that, Danny would also win unanimously here. Now for Panama, we're adding Nick to the jury, and Danielle has a number of people she could vote out. I mean, she could obviously vote out Suri as someone that was very closely aligned to Aris, and through that, probably won't vote for her. However, I do think her close relationship with Suri will leave her out of the options here. I mean, I think really she probably goes for Terry. I think Terry's probably the biggest antagonistic figure for Danielle here. Or maybe she just go for Nick as like someone that she has no real relationship with. But her and Austin did spend time on Exile. Her and Sally did spend time on the original Bayonetta tribe. She had a relationship with Courtney. She knows that Shane is burned by Aris. So, I mean, I feel like Terry's the answer here. But to be honest, again, it doesn't really matter, as no matter what, Aris would still get the vote of Nick, and through that still win 5-2. Now for Cook Islands, and here we're not going to add a jury member, as we're already at a 9-person jury. We're going to vote someone out, so I'll make an 8-person jury, which is really the way that Final 3 should have been to begin with, considering that avoids the possibility of a 3-way tie. So again, it kind of just works out anyway here, and Ozzy has a few options here of who to vote out. I think obviously he could vote out Penner as someone that he didn't really respect and didn't have a good relationship with. Or he could vote out Brad, another person that is very likely going to vote for Yule, and someone that he also has no relationship with. By the way, through that, he does get to a 4-4 tie with Yule, to which Becky ends up deciding the game, to which she would obviously vote for Yule. So again, kind of the same result. Next up from Survivor Fiji, we have Dreams probably voting out Yao. I mean, obviously he just burned Yao, but at the same time, he did obviously burn like an Alex, a Mookie, Edgardo. But I think to him, he definitely thinks that he burnt Yao the most. But again, really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because Earl would still win unanimously anyway. Next up for Survivor China, here we are going to be adding a jury member actually to avoid a 3-way tie, as there were only 7 jury members at a final 3. I do think it makes Amanda's choice pretty difficult, as again, I feel like there's a number of people that she could vote out. She could obviously vote out Saria as the first juror at this point. She could vote out John Robert, who promised that he would never vote for any of the final 3. She could also vote for Denise, someone that was clearly annoyed at the fact that Amanda didn't side with her at the end. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's mostly still the same result. Now, I don't 100% know where Sharia's vote really goes. I'm inclined to probably think it goes towards Courtney, to where there is a chance of a 3-3-1 tie, depending on who Amanda votes out. But even then, Amanda would still vote for Todd, so I do think Todd still wins anyway. Next up, for Micronesia, we get Amanda again making the decision. And here, I think she probably votes out Suri, who she obviously just burned and knew that she wasn't getting her vote. She could also vote out Natalie as someone that was also very pro-Parvati. It could go either way, but again, another situation where it doesn't matter. Parvati still wins 4-3 here. Next up for Gabon, we are adding a juror in Dan for similar reasons to China. And Susie could vote out really a number of people. I mean, she could really vote out any of the old Kodas, where, I mean, I do feel like Randy and Corinne are probably the most likely, considering they are the most disliked of the Kodas, but she was someone that directly burned Marcus as well, so that's definitely a possibility. And finally, in this situation, Dan, the new jury member, ends up becoming the swing vote here, where I feel like no matter what, Susie was going to end up voting out a person that was going to vote for Bob, and through that it becomes a 3-3 tie. Now with Dan deciding the game, and to be honest, I don't know exactly where he would go. Obviously, he did spend some time with Bob on the swap tribe and tried to get in with the old Coda, so there's a chance he sides with them. But then also, he was on the original starting tribe with Susie, and a lot of the people he was on the original starting tribe vote for Susie. So again, it could go either way, and I really don't know where he would go. Next up for Token Genes, we're adding Joe to the jury here, and JT really could vote out any of those first few jurors. He can vote out Joe as the first juror here. He can vote out Brendan as a person that wouldn't lose him any respect. Really, same thing with Sierra as well. You can also vote out Tyson as the only person that was not inherently voting for him already. He could even vote out Aaron to try to appease Coach. He could vote out Taj, as obviously he just burned Taj not too long ago. Again, it really could go either way. JT does have a decent amount of options here. To be honest, I'm probably actually inclined to think that he might vote out Taj, considering, again, he knows that he blindsided Taj. And also, I think he would be under the assumption at this point that Taj would actually be a Steven vote. So I think that's probably where he would go. But to be honest, it doesn't matter because either way it would be a unanimous vote anyway. Next up for Survivor Samoa, Russell gets the side here, and I think he probably votes out Monica. I think that's the easy one here, considering Monica literally threatened him with her vote. I think he would love to retaliate there, and through that, still lose the game, though now only in a 6-2 margin. And with that, we're moving on to Heroes vs. Villains, where we once again have a choice by Russell. And, I mean, again, he has so many people to pick from here. He can pick Courtney, someone that's openly mocking him on the jury, and someone that is clearly going to vote for Sandra. He can vote for Rupert, the person he literally called a dumbass, and is giving him death stares from the jury. He can vote out Danielle, someone that he knows is going to vote for Parvati. I mean, like, there are a number of options here. If I were to guess, I would say Russell would probably vote out Danielle, considering I do feel like he thought that Parvati was his biggest competition and wanted to undermine her, but again, at the end of the day, obviously doesn't have much of an effect on anything. Next up, moving on to Survivor Nicaragua, where here we have Fabio, and I mean, again, it could go either way. He can vote out the first juror in Alina, someone that he kind of burned his relationship with along the way. But also, I think more likely he votes out either Holly or Jane, the two people that are pretty much locked votes for Chase. Probably Holly being the one that he actually votes out, considering I feel like Holly was the least burned by how she was voted out. But again, at the end of the day, votes shouldn't really matter. Either way, he's probably taking a vote away from Chase and still winning the game 5-3. Next up, moving on to Boston Rob. And again, Boston Rob also has a number of people he can pick from here. I think the only Ometepe that he would consider voting out here is probably Grant, where obviously he burns Grant. Grant seemed pretty angry even from the jury. So I think that is someone that could be a clear person to vote out. From the Zapatero side, I mean, Ralph is obviously someone that was never going to vote for him, but to be honest, I don't know if Rob ever knew that. And obviously, Julie is another person that holds a lot of animosity towards him as well, to where, again, I think it's one of these options. I think if I was Rob, I would probably vote out Grant, considering I think Julie is tight with Mike and Steve, who I think are more likely to be siding with Rob, to where I feel like they could probably get Julie to vote with Rob, while I feel like Grant is kind of more on his own in the jury, and through that could be more actively voting bitterly. But again, either way, it really doesn't matter. He's still going to win in a wide margin. Next up for South Pacific, we have Sophie, and Sophie could vote out a couple people. She could vote out Ozzy as someone that was very anti her at the time that he gets voted out, though obviously he does end up voting for. Or, I mean, she could vote out Edna, who I think is probably the most loyal of the Coach votes, probably one of the biggest locks for Coach coming to Final Tribal. So really, I feel like it's either of the two. I would be inclined to say she votes out Edna, considering I think voting out Ozzy will probably lose her a bit of respect from the old Savaii, while Edna is someone that's such a locked vote for Coach that I feel like that's probably the way to go, and she would still end up winning in a wide margin. Next up, moving on to One World, where Kim has an easy vote here. I mean, it's either Troyzan or Leaf, more than likely Troyzan. I mean, I think she knew that these were the two people that she was not getting the votes of. Mind you, she at least had a better relationship with Troyzan at one point in the game, to where like maybe she goes for Leaf instead, just because he's the only person that she was never able to build a relationship with. But I think she would look at Troyzan as the more dangerous juror, as the person that could turn the other jurors against her, to where I feel like that's probably where she would realistically go. Next up for Philippines, and here we have Scoopin, and I think he has two easy options here. He either has Jeff Kent, someone that is very anti-returnee, or he has Abby Maria, who is calling him a moron and an idiot on her way out. I think it could go either way, but again, either way, it doesn't matter, because they both weren't voting for him. And to be honest, I don't really know exactly where he'll go. I mean, I think he is someone that could just vote out Abby just because he simply doesn't respect her, but I could see her voting out Jeff, considering how much he still even talks about the fact that there was this anti-returnee sentiment. But I think there could be this element of him that thinks that, okay, Jeff Kent will respect me for getting to the end, while Abby won't. So I guess I would lean towards Abby, but really could go either way, but it doesn't matter because Scoopin would still lose. Next up for Karamoan, we have Cochran, and it really doesn't matter. Cochran wins unanimously, obviously, and I don't think any of these people were super apparent people for him to be voting out. I mean, I think all these people were very likely Cochran votes coming into Final Tribal. I guess vote out Michael as the first juror, and also the person that he has less of a inherent relationship with. Or he could vote out like Reynolds maybe as someone that, again, like he didn't seem to have the closest relationship with, but realistically, I just feel like he was pretty guaranteed to get most of the votes on the board here, so it really didn't matter. Next up for Blood versus Water, we have Tyson, and I think this is pretty easy. It's either between Vetus or Katie. Vetus, someone, again, tried to blackmail him with his vote earlier, or Katie, the person who he did the most actively bad jury management with. I think he's probably inclined to vote out Vetus, as, again, it seemed pretty clear that Tyson knew he could smooth things over with Katie coming to Final Tribal, while I don't know if he would think the same about Vetus. And if he does vote out Vetus, then he wins unanimously. So again, I think that is a mostly likely option. Now for Cagayan, we're going to have to drop a jury member, as again, we had a 9-person jury. And if we get rid of one, that opens up the possibility for a tie at a final 2. So we have to drop Sarah from the jury. And now Wu gets to vote someone out, and I think it's either LJ or Cass. I mean, obviously Cass, the person that was the last vote out, he directly voted her out. I think that would have been a likely option. Also, I think LJ is someone that he could do, considering Tony really snowed him into thinking that LJ was directly against him. So again, I think it could go either way. I would probably guess that he would go for Cass, considering I feel like he knew that she would be upset at him for voting her out, to where I feel like that's where he would probably lean, and through that, he would still lose 6-1. Next up for San Juan del Sur, we have Jacqueline getting to vote someone out, and I mean, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I think really she's going to go for Baylor, the only person that is a locked vote for Missy, or Jeremy, one of the biggest locked votes for Natalie. I think it's 1-2. I think it probably is Jeremy, just because obviously she knew that Natalie was the bigger threat. But I mean, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Jacqueline still loses here. Now for Worlds Apart, and I think this one's super simple. I think Mike's voting out Rodney, and I don't think it's really much of a question. I think Rodney is the clear person that Mike knows that he's not going to get the vote of and not be able to win back. So I think that one's a pretty easy one. Now for Cambodia, we are going to drop a juror here, again, to avoid a tie. So we have to get rid of Cass. And Jeremy could go a number of ways here. Obviously, Kimmy is someone that he just burned not too long ago and had poor jury management during her boot, but he also had a close relationship with Kimmy at points to where he might be able to keep her around. Sierra's also a person that he had direct hand in sending home, and also someone that he didn't really have that close a relationship with, so that's also someone likely. And then we also have Abby, who is someone that, I mean, Abby's just a wild card. So I think it could go either way. I would probably lean towards him voting off Abby, as I feel like he would think of her as this irrational player that he wouldn't be able to sway either way. Obviously, realistically, I think he should vote out Sierra, considering Sierra is the only person that was considering voting for Spencer coming into Final Tribal. But again, really, it doesn't matter. He still wins unanimously. Obviously, Korong did actually have this twist, so we are moving on to Millennials versus Gen X, where again, we have to drop a juror in Michelle here. And Ken could vote out David. Obviously, he just burned David. I don't think it's super likely, though, considering I think Ken did think he was getting David's vote coming into Final Tribal. I think it's more likely that he votes someone like a Brett, someone that had shown numerous times throughout the season that he didn't really have much respect for him. So I think that's probably the easier option for Ken here, and through that, he still loses unanimously. Next up for Game Changers, again, another one, we have to drop Haley here. And I think Brad, again, could vote out Ty as someone that he literally just voted out. But again, I think Brad thought he was getting Ty's vote coming into Final Tribal. So I do think the easier option here is Michaela, someone that he knew he had a hostile relationship with, and was more than likely never voting for him. And through that, he still loses 5-3 here. Now we're jumping to HHH, and this is where things get kind of weird, because obviously this is the first season with the forced fire-making twist. Here of Chrissy, I do think she probably votes out one of Desi or Joe. I think it's definitely one of the healers, considering she didn't have the greatest relationship with them. And I think Joe is someone that she had some pretty poor jury management with on his way out, and also someone that she had a more hostile relationship with, where I think it could be him. Obviously, Desi is the first juror. That could be a possibility. And also someone that she didn't have a good relationship with. It could go either way. I'm probably inclined to think that she would vote for Joe, considering how pro-Ben Joe was as well. But again, she still ends up losing either way. Next up for Ghost Island, we are going to have to drop Chris Noble as a juror. And through that, I think Dominic probably easily votes out Seabass, as at this point, Seabass is very anti-Dominic, considering what happened at his final tribal. And while Dominic was a bit surprised at how anti-Dom he was, I do feel like at the same time, he should have known that Seabass was a very likely Wendell vote as well. So I do feel like that is probably the person he votes out. If not that, then maybe Donathan. But I do think to Dominic, he probably thought there was a chance of getting Donathan's vote. So again, I feel like Seabass is the person he votes out, and through that, we still get a 4-4 tie, considering Chris Noble had to be dropped from the jury as well, which means Dominic still loses in a tiebreaker. Next up for Dave vs. Goliath, we do drop Elizabeth from the jury, and here, I mean, Nick doesn't really have a great option. I feel like it's probably one of Cara or Allison. I guess Allison then. I think that's the only person he could possibly pick here, as that's the only person that would have any reason to not vote for Nick on the offset, so I feel like that's probably where he goes, and he obviously still wins. Now for Edge of Extinction, and for Edge of Extinction seasons, I mean, who cares about what the jury size is, because they clearly didn't care. So again, we'll keep all the jurors, and this is the situation where obviously, again, the giving up of immunity would play a factor. So again, I feel like Chris would still have the vote on who to vote off, and I feel like he would either go Wentworth or Lauren, both of which were pretty pro Gavin, and also people that he burned Wentworth with exposing the information that she gave to him to burn Lauren's game, and then also him actually burning Lauren's game. Again, it could be one of the two. I feel like probably Wentworth would be where Chris would go, considering the fact that he was able to manipulate Lauren to begin with. I think is something that leans credence into him thinking that he could possibly get Lauren's vote to begin with. So again, I feel like he would go Wentworth and still win anyway. Now for 39, here we are dropping Jack from the jury. And here I do think Nora probably votes out Lauren. Obviously, Lauren is a very locked Tommy vote, and also someone that she literally just burned the very last round, got into a fight with her. I think that's a pretty clear-cut choice, and through that, Tommy still wins 6-2. Now for Survivor, Winners at War, Natalie probably has a decent amount of options here. And to us, again, it doesn't matter. Tony's still winning anyway. He wins by such a wide margin. But again, she could vote out Sarah. She could vote out Ben, two of the biggest locked Tony votes. She could vote out Yule, someone she had a bad relationship with on the edge. I think any of those are good options for her. I think she's probably more inclined to vote out Ben, considering at least with Sarah, at least there is a relationship there. Well, there's literally no relationship between her and Ben. So I think that's probably where she goes. Now for 41, we're moving on to Xander getting to vote someone out. I think he probably votes out Heather. I mean, again, he did think Erica was his biggest threat at this point. Heather is obviously a pretty locked Erica vote. While these other people that do end up becoming locked Erica votes in a Ricard, a Evie, a Tiffany, these are people that Xander has more of a relationship with. So again, I do feel like Heather is probably the easy pick here. And finally, for Survivor 42, we always have Romeo getting the choice here. And I think this one's kind of a tough one, as it did seem like Romeo knew coming in the final tribal that he didn't really have a chance at winning. So like, does it really matter too much? But based on the way that he acted at final tribal, and also his thought that Mike was the most likely winner, I do think he probably votes out Jonathan. I think Jonathan's the person that is obviously the most likely to vote for Mike. And is also someone that he doesn't really have much of a connection to. It felt like almost every other juror he at least had some connection to, whether that be original starting tribe with Drea, Tori, and Roxroy, or having his eventual argument of, I didn't vote you out, which he says to like Chanel and Hai. He supposedly had a close relationship with Omer. I guess it technically kind of could be Lindsay, but I feel like Jonathan seems like a more likely pick there. To which obviously he still ends up losing anyway. It really just makes it so Marianne wins unanimously. But there we go. I mean, that is every season of Survivor US, talking about what happens if every season had juror removal. Obviously, moving forward, I will continue to do Survivor, Big Brother, What If videos, and I guess just more general videos, so stay tuned for those. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.